Hey everyone, welcome to the Building Excellence podcast. I've got Brad Kragthorpe with the Cincinnati Bengals, a good friend of mine, and thanks for being on the show, Brad.
Yeah, happy to be here. Appreciate you having me on.
If you wouldn't mind, give us some context into kind of you and growing up. What was that like?
Yeah, I was a coach's kid growing up. My dad coached football my entire life, got to be around sports and athletics, football specifically, ever since I was able to walk, and moved around a lot, which was both a cool experience and sometimes not a great experience. Kind of some good and bad with that. But just grew up around sports my entire life. Was really fortunate to have the experiences that I did because of the jobs my dad had, and was really a cool experience growing up as a coach's kid.
Yeah, for sure. And just talk briefly. You moved around a lot. So, where are some of the spots that you were at growing up?
Yeah, so I was born in Arizona, and then moved to Texas, moved to Boston, Massachusetts, then back to Texas, and then to Buffalo, New York, and then Tulsa, Oklahoma, and then to Louisville, Kentucky, and then back to Tulsa, and that was through high school. So
Mm-hmm.
I think it was 7 or 8 times that I moved before graduating high school, and then moved around a little bit in college as well, and then have moved around a decent amount post grad. So
Yeah.
I'm no stranger. I'm no stranger to moving. That's for sure.
Yeah. Well, at least you finished high school off right in Tulsa. So,
Yeah, exactly, exactly.
so through those experiences, you're moving around a lot. Do you look back and see how you were able to adapt to getting to know different people and being able to converse with people and some of the things you learned along the way of being able to adapt to different environments and getting to know people?
Yeah, for sure. Living in different parts of the country, you got different cultures, you've got different values and things of that nature. And yeah, being around people in Texas compared to Buffalo, New York, or Boston, Massachusetts is definitely different. And making those connections and building those relationships with people from all over the country was definitely something that I look back and value and am grateful that I got to do. I've friends and contacts all over the country now, to where I feel like there probably isn't a city in the U.S. that I couldn't go to and have somebody that I have a relationship with or am friends with, that I go grab lunch with and catch up. And yeah, all those connections and friendships are something that I value a lot.
Mm-hmm. And so your dad was in athletics. Was being involved in athletics something that was very influential in your life growing up, like playing different sports? What were some of the sports you played aside from football? Because
Hmm.
obviously you're a football guy, but what were some things that you played growing up?
Hmm. Yeah, pretty much everything. My dad encouraged us to play everything. He was not a sports specific guy. The sports that he really encouraged us to play were tennis and golf, because those are the sports that you can play the entirety of your life. And
So
and then there
you
are
listen really
also
well. So
I well, yeah, I played tennis and golf for a long time growing up, and then
uh
I'm still, golf is my best sport right now, I'd probably say.
yeah.
Um, but yeah, and just developing all sorts of athletic traits, hand-eye coordination, foot quickness, things like that. Those are all things that you see them maybe get emphasized in a certain sport, but really you can develop those skills through every sport, and I think it's important to do that. And yeah, I played basketball, baseball, tennis, golf, um, hockey for a little bit in Buffalo. So yeah, I was all about being around teammates and being involved in team sports. That was probably the one thing I wasn't a huge fan of in tennis and in golf, were the individual aspects of it, and things like that. I was much more team oriented and wanted to be around teammates and have those experiences with those guys.
Yeah. So would you say that you are more for like specialization, or do you like the idea of playing many sports to get some of those different
A
qualities that
hundred,
you
a
talked
hundred,
about?
yeah, 100% playing as many sports as you can, because not only just for specialization purposes, but I think it's important, to experience as many sports as you can growing up to know which one, maybe if you do want to specialize down the road, which one that is, because your passion and your enjoyment in each sport, individual sport, can change, throughout the years. And if you're not experiencing, if you're not playing every sport you can early on, then you might be locking yourself into a sport that, in high school you may not truly love anymore, or college, or whenever it is. But I think that for those reasons, and then again, just developing athletic traits in each sport, because they're different in each sport, I think is pretty huge.
Yeah. And not only do you like to do things on the field, but you like off the field too. You're in choir, right?
I was. I
What
was
kind of
senior
singer were
year.
you? Tenor,
I was a
alto?
tenor. I was a
Okay.
tenor. I was a tenor. Yeah, I was a tenor.
Yeah. So you have lots of different skills and gifts. So
I don't know if I would have called that a skill, but I
yeah.
was just kind of background noise.
I wish we could find some old footage of that. But anyway,
I'm sure
so
it's out there. I'm sure
yeah.
it's out there.
Also, talk about your parents. They were influential growing up. What are some lessons that you learned from them as you look back that really shaped you?
Yeah, I would say that how to handle adversity, for sure, is one of those, and really just adapting to circumstances. Controlling the things that you can control, and not letting the things you can't affect you or your mindset too much, because the, we lived in a world of chaos a little bit at times, and being grounded, and knowing what your values are, and controlling the things you can control is really what you're going to fall back on in times like that. And they did a great job of instilling values in me, and from a young age, that I still carry today. And yeah, there were definitely a lot of lessons along the way that helped shape me into to who I am right now.
Yeah, absolutely. So you wound up for your senior year, you wound up going to Hall and Hall in Tulsa for high school. So how did you wind up making the decision to go to Hall and Hall?
Um, so kind of there were a lot of factors there. The first one being that my dad was at the time coaching at Texas A&M. He had just taken a job at Texas A&M as the receiver coach that off season, and we were contemplating what we wanted to do as a family, if we wanted to move down to College Station, if we wanted to stay in Tulsa where we were at the time. And he wanted us to come down there and be with him. But going into my senior year, we kind of compromised on me going to Holland Hall, who played a bunch of games in Texas, in the state of Texas, that he would be able to attend, because he wanted to be able to see me play my senior year. And so that coupled with the people that were at Holland Hall, my brother had graduated from Holland Hall, and coaches like Coach O, Coach Ostrowski, Coach Gross, and then BT were played a big part in it as well. And ultimately, it was the right decision.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you had just didn't you win some state championships before over in Louisville? Or
Played in a couple, yeah.
Played in a couple.
What one, two is the backup, and then unfortunately lost the one that I started in.
Okay.
But yeah, went to a really successful athletic school in Louisville. That it was a really cool experience also.
But I think one of the points in that story is that you had to, you moved as a senior in high school, something that
Mm-hmm.
many people would not want to do.
Mm-hmm.
So basically what you talked about, being able to adapt and being able to control what you can control. And so you wound up moving, and obviously
Mm-hmm.
had a great career at Hall and Hall as well in that year that you were there. So had a
Mm-hmm.
lot of good talent around you though. So that
We
helped you
did.
out.
We did. We did. I was the facilitator.
Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, well, you wound up out of Hall and Hall going and playing college football, Idaho State.
Mm-hmm.
How did you wind up at Idaho State first and foremost?
Well, they were my first scholarship offer, and so I wasn't very highly recruited coming out of high school, and so I waited a while to get the first scholarship offer that I got, and it was Idaho State. And I had kind of told myself early on that whoever the first school was going to be that took a chance on me and offered me a scholarship, they were going to be the leader in the clubhouse, if you will. They were going to be the one that I was going to go to unless somebody else was able to offer something that I thought was substantially better. And so took a visit up there, really liked it. Liked the idea of kind of getting away and doing my own thing for a couple of years. And yeah, had a fun experience up there my freshman year. And made a lot of friends and really enjoyed the teammates that I had and the roommates that I had and the camaraderie that we had a really close group. And it was a good experience my freshman year.
Mm-hmm. So it was obviously too cold. So you wound up moving down to Louisiana right after that, correct? Mm-hmm. Where it's a little bit warmer.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. Just talk about that experience being at LSU, playing football at LSU, and then getting to learn from some of the guys that were around you and also coaches that you were with at LSU.
Yeah. So the first year I was there, I got to play for my dad, which was a big reason that I wanted to go down there. At Idaho State, I quickly realized that, like you said, the cold wasn't so great, and then I missed my family a lot too, and the distance wasn't exactly what I needed at that time.
Yeah.
And so going down to LSU was an easy decision, and getting to play for my dad was really, really cool experience. And then got to play for some other great coaches like Cam Cameron. Les Miles was a great coach who I learned a lot from, and then like you said, I got to play with some very, very talented players as well, like Odell Beckham and Jarvis Landry, Jeremy Hill, Lyle Collins, Trey White. The list goes on, but yeah, that was definitely it exposed me to a much higher level of football that I hadn't yet experienced. And really kind of laid the groundwork for how I viewed that level of football and how it would kind of shape my views moving forward as a player and as a coach. It was a really, really cool experience and something I'll always remember and always look back on for anything that it could potentially help me moving forward.
Yeah. So do you have any favorite experiences during your time at LSU?
Yeah, definitely. Some of the experiences that when I was playing, when I got to play, some of the plays that I was able to have, and then really, the experiences that I fondly remember is the game day experiences, the atmospheres that I got to experience and play in. Is second to none in the SEC. Going to places like Florida and Georgia and Alabama and Auburn, and then our home games as well at LSU were always very special. And then obviously the time you have with your teammates as well. It's those behind the scenes moments that you also really remember and reflect back on and think fondly about. The bus rides, the locker room moments, the pregame meals. All those things, the hard work that you would put in the summer and off season and kind of, struggling and grinding with those guys. Those are a lot of the times that really stick out the most as well.
Yeah. And I think that's a great point because that's something really in life that's relative to life as well. We really absolutely enjoy the high moments, but it's the kind of the behind the scenes moments is the hard work, the preparation, the relationships, the things that are day-to-day things that you have to accomplish each day. But at the same time, you're going through it with individuals and people you admire, people that are right alongside with you. And those are really the things that you really have to enjoy because sometimes obviously the end is great, but also the journey is great. So enjoying each moment as you go through, which is a great point that you talked about just there. One of the things I want to talk about real quick is the Music City Bowl. I don't know. I can't remember what year it was. All right. We had a big play, which if we look back, we can show pictures. There was that was actually, you were in the end zone. So,
I thought so too.
Yeah. So you had the fake kick and you ran into the end zone. And unfortunately were you in?
Yep. I was definitely in.
You're definitely in. All right.
And the funny part of that story too is two of our friends from high school, Ethan and then your cousin Billy.
Uh,
Were in the stands, and they're big Notre Dame fans,
yep.
and they're wearing, even though I begged them not to, they're wearing Notre Dame. They're wearing I give them tickets to the game, so they're sitting in an LSU section, and they're wearing Notre Dame apparel, even though I begged them not to.
That's the type of friends that are. You got them the tickets, and they're wearing Notre Dame stuff.
Exactly. But and so they're cheering for Notre Dame pretty much the entire game, and then whenever we run that fake field goal, they go crazy for LSU, and because they know it's me, and they go crazy and wild cheering, and they said all the LSU fans around them were looking at them like, wait, I thought you were cheering for the other team. Why? I'm so confused.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, that was definitely, I tell people that even though I didn't score technically, I guess, I definitely got a lot more notoriety and recognition from not scoring if I would have just scored, because it kind of became a point of contention, and kind of a major turning point in the game, and kind of had an outcome or an effect on the outcome of the game. And so I definitely gained a lot more recognition from it not being a touchdown than if it would have been a touchdown.
Yeah. And it was talked about quite a bit after that. So pretty fun story there. Just thought I'd bring that up.
Yep.
So you were at LSU for a little bit. And I wanted to touch on this back at the beginning of kind of your story. Did you always know you wanted to be a college, or not college, but just a coach at a high level in football?
Yeah, I did. Being around my dad whenever I was little, specifically whenever he was at Tulsa and I was in middle school, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th grade. The moments that I got to have with him, and being around, I was around a lot, and it wasn't really because I wanted to coach necessarily, but it was because I love football so much, and I just wanted to be around my dad. And so being in at the practices, and I traveled with him to every road game. I stayed in the hotel with him on Friday nights, went to meetings, did all that type of stuff. Really that I did things like that ever since I was, in kindergarten when he was at Texas A&M. But those, having those moments and experiencing those things that I got to experience, which I was very fortunate to get to experience, and I'm very grateful for that. I quickly realized that I loved, coaching, and more specifically, I guess, just being around the game, and that really lit the fire in me, and made me decide pretty quickly that being around the game in some form, and then more specifically being a coach, were absolutely what I wanted to do in life.
Mm-hmm. And you talk about a love for the game. I can remember being in college when you'd be back in town, and we'd be over at a friend's place, and you'd be sitting there watching film just because, so there's absolutely a love for that. And that's a good point too, is having a love for what you're doing and having some passion behind it, because when you don't, obviously you want to work hard and be excellent at what you're doing, but at the same time, you got that extra oomph of passion and energy, enthusiasm for what you're doing makes a big difference. Sometimes it's those critical. Little things. Yeah.
So I think it's critical.
Yeah. So that's a good point. But, one of the things for people that don't understand how you kind of step in and transition into coaching, obviously you're at LSU and you wound up being able to go, was your first job as a GA at LSU? Is that correct?
No, at Utah State.
Utah State. Oh my gosh. Yep. Yeah. I definitely want to talk about that. I totally forgot real quick.
Yeah.
Which was a great experience too. I mean, Utah State, you guys had a great program up there by Matt Wells was the head coach at the time. Yep. Talk about your experience when you decided you wanted to transition from playing to coaching, and what were the schools you looked at? How did you wind up getting opportunities, and what did you have to do to get those opportunities?
Yeah. It was definitely harder than I thought it was going to be. Once I finished playing, I thought that I'd be able to find a school to GA at, and just kind of, go from there, hopefully an SEC school, an LSU or something like that. But you quickly realize when you get out of college, you get into the real world, it's not so easy, finding your dream job. And so, I was fortunate again, because Coach Wells was on my dad's staff at Texas A&M, and he was the head coach at Utah State at the time. Whenever I was coming out of college, I was fortunate that he had an opening and gave me an opportunity because I was sitting jobless for about 2 months after I graduated and finished playing. And so I was able to go up there and work for him. And he was awesome. He was unbelievable. He's a great coach and a great motivator. And really what I learned, the most from that experience was how to build a program and how to set a culture. We had a culture there that was really, really good. And just the way that you can get player buy-in and the way that really how that affects your team overall and ultimately your win-loss record, and how whenever you get into close games, it's the culture and the leadership that you've cultivated from a player level as a coach that is really going to determine a lot of those close games and determine a lot of what your success looks like year in and year out. So the lessons I learned in terms of culture and how to build and create and sustain a culture at Utah State is all stuff that I will absolutely carry with me throughout my career.
Yeah. Well, one point I want to point out too is that, you didn't sit jobless. You didn't have a job, but you were working. You were trying to get a job.
Yeah.
So it wasn't
No,
like you're
exactly.
sitting
That's
on
a
your
good
butt
point.
waiting for something to happen. You were actually
No,
hustling, working,
you're
probably making
absolutely
phone
right about
calls,
that.
emails, things like that. You were working to do that. So I wanted to make sure
Yep.
people understand that. And
No, that's absolutely true.
going back to the culture component of things, what, in your opinion, because you got to be around some great programs, um, and talking about Utah State, what are the little things that basically make a culture, in your opinion? I mean, you touched on it a little bit, but what are those things like? When you're looking for a recruit, obviously you want to have
Mm-hmm.
talent, but what are those intangibles that you guys
Mm-hmm.
are looking for?
Yeah, I would say competitiveness would be probably one of the top ones for me. And then being tough minded, having mental toughness and being able to fight through difficult things because you're going to experience failures. You're going to experience tough times. It's inevitable. It's going to happen. And the guys that are competitive and have a extremely strong desire to win and to succeed at whatever they're doing, and then the guys that can fight through adversity and have mental toughness and have the mental fortitude to get through, and not just get through but get better from the negative experiences that they're gonna have. That's those would be two of the things that I think really are foundational pieces to building a culture that you can have success with.
Yeah. So would you say if you had a high level player with a lot of skill, but maybe
Mm-hmm.
not so much of work ethic or competitiveness versus a guy who has not mediocre skill, but good skill, not
Mm-hmm.
fantastic, but has this competitive spirit, this drive, this energy, not going to
Mm-hmm.
cut corners. Would you pick that guy over the guy with skill?
More than likely, yeah, I would.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, every instance like that is pretty circumstantial, but yeah, I value those things, like you said, work ethic, competitive spirit, and then mental toughness and all those intangibles. I place a lot of value on those, and especially when you reach higher levels of football, your skill level in comparison to the players that you're playing against and with, it shrinks. And so having those intangibles that that are going to separate you mentally is they're invaluable, and I think they're extremely important. And again, because your skill can only take you so far, and ultimately it's going to be the intangibles and all those things that are going to carry you and determine a lot of the success you have.
Mm-hmm. And you talk about mental toughness. In your opinion, how does someone develop mental toughness?
Probably through experience more than anything else. Like I said, tough times are going to happen. They're inevitable. They're going to come, and kind of building those calluses and experiencing those tough times and learning how to pull through them, and not just pull through them, but learn from them and get better from them. Those are those are the times that you really build mental toughness and um, really shape how you handle adversity. And yeah, I think that really experiences is the ultimate teacher, and I think that that holds true in that circumstance as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a great point. One of the things I think about, because that's something that often gets talked about is mental toughness, but how do you develop it? And
Hmm.
when you're going through those moments that sometimes you don't often think like this is developing mental toughness in me by going through
Hmm.
this. But if you have that mindset, like I'm going to make something positive out of this instead of negative, I'm going to learn from the
Hmm.
experience. But also another key I just thought about is having people around you to help shape you through that experience too. So there's
Hmm.
obviously the quote that goes around, you are the sum of the five, people around you. You're very similar, and so having solid people to help you through these experiences, to help show you things when maybe you don't want to be shown things, or just having those people is really key and critical also to the mental component side of it. And it's important because if you look at a lot of different people, even yourself, you've got people around you that we're always going to have your back, be there for you, but always are going to help you through those experiences as well. And that just seems to be a common pattern that you see in a lot of people that are, working towards their goals, their dreams, their ambitions, and doing it at a high level. So,
No question. No question. That's a
yeah.
good point.
Anyway, so you're at Utah State. You have, you're part of a great program that's building a great culture. Coach Wells obviously is a great coach, and but you wound up transitioning going to LSU.
Yep.
How did that come about? Did you want to be back at LSU and talk about that?
Yeah. Yeah. It was an opportunity. Whenever a coach that I played for at LSU got the offensive coordinator job in 2018. He called me and asked me if I'd be interested in coming down there a support staff and analyst role. And I interviewed with him and really wanted it. I wanted to go back to LSU for sure. I thought that would be a great opportunity. And then getting to coach for somebody and work for somebody like Ed Orgeron was a really, really great experience. I learned, I think that he's arguably the best recruiter in college football right now, and learning from him and the importance that recruiting has in college football these days. Learning from somebody like him was unbelievable. And and we had a good team too. We had a lot of really fun guys to coach, and some really good players, young players that hadn't really had a ton of experience that were growing, and helping them continue to develop and see them turn into ultimately what they turned into in 2019. Getting to be a small part of that in 2018 was really a fun experience that I'll always value and uh, and and look back and remember fondly.
Yeah, and one thing maybe to touch on that point is obviously they won the national championship in 2019. In
Hmm.
2019, you had taken a job with the Bengals where you are currently, so you weren't a part of that staff and that experience, but you played a part in it in a big role. And so in 2018, when they haven't yet achieved that pinnacle, what are the things day in and day out that the coaches are preaching, that the players are doing to allow them to keep scaling up and to actually achieve the goals that they set in front of themselves?
Just keep getting better. Every day, just keep getting better. We knew that we were a young team that didn't have a ton of experience, and so we just constantly were preaching about improvement and developing and getting better every practice, every game, because you were going to experience things that you hadn't experienced before as a player, just simply because not a lot of those guys had played a ton in real game action in the SEC, and so as the year went on, those guys all just improved, and you could see it building throughout the year, that it was going to be something special amongst those guys. And yeah, just daily improvement was constantly getting preached, and it was a lot of fun to see it manifest itself.
Yeah. So, like we said just a second ago, you wound up going to the Cincinnati Bengals in
Hmm.
2019. Were you wanting to be in the NFL, or how did that opportunity present itself?
I did. I did. I did want to be in the NFL, but it wasn't something. I'm a big believer in being where your feet are, and not necessarily looking for the next job. You can have goals and things of that nature, but it was a situation where again, a connection with my dad, where Zac Taylor had gotten the head coaching job with the Cincinnati Bengals in 2019, and he had worked with my dad at Texas A&M, even though it was for a short time. And during that time, I was able to go down that summer to Texas A&M to College Station and participate in a couple camps. And at that time, I was pretty much down there by myself with my dad, and so I hung out at the office quite a bit. And one of the guys I kind of got to know and talk to a lot was Zac Taylor, and so kind of built a relationship with him there. He was one of the people. He was whenever I was coming out of college, he was the offense coordinator at the University of Cincinnati at the time, and so he was one of the people I was trying really hard to potentially get a GA job with coming out of college. It didn't work out, but stayed in contact with him. He's an awesome guy. He's an awesome friend, and stayed in contact with him through the years, and was fortunate enough to get an interview. He gave me an interview to come coach in Cincinnati, and whenever he offered me the job, I said yes immediately. It was a no-brainer, and getting into the NFL and having that experience was definitely something that I wanted, and was on my list of things I wanted to accomplish. And it was a no-brainer to come up here with not only to get to coach in the NFL, but to do it with somebody like Zac. Was again a no-brainer, and it's been a great experience since.
Yeah, and as you talk about being where your feet are, that's a quote that I've heard that I really like as well. Because if you focus on where you're at, you do a good job, and you try to do the best that you can at the job that you're currently in, things happen for you. Whether or
Yep.
not you're trying to make them happen or not, things happen for you. Just like you being at Utah State, doing a really good job, getting an opportunity to come to LSU because the offensive coordinator came in and he worked with you, knew your work ethic, knew your knowledge of the game. That was an opportunity that presented itself, obviously, with Coach Taylor. So it's one of those things where if you work and be diligent at where you are, consistently hard work, those things pay off in the long run. So, I mean, one of the
There's
things
no doubt.
one of the things I want to talk to you about is, as someone who's now in the NFL, what is the difference? I mean, have you enjoyed being in the NFL versus college? And what would be the difference, in your opinion, for those people out there that, maybe are not within athletics, but they love athletics? So kind of
Mm-hmm.
explain that to them.
Yeah. I really enjoy being in the NFL. I enjoy coaching college as well. But the NFL is, it's the highest level of football, first of all, which is a lot of fun to be around. You're with some of the best athletes in the world on a day in, day out basis, which, as a former athlete, as somebody who idolized those type of people growing up, has been really, really cool to experience now later in life. And then, just the purity of the NFL in terms of it just being about football. You don't have to deal with as much recruiting and academic things, stuff like that can kind of be distractions, not distractions, but they kind of take away from the purity of just being focused on football, which is what I love. It's one of the aspects of the job that I love. And so getting to experience that, and getting to really just focus on football and grow as a football coach from that standpoint has been really beneficial to me, and something that I've really experienced. Now, one thing that I do miss about college is you do have a little bit more of an impact on the guys you're coaching. You're coaching 18 to 20-year-olds that are still kind of figuring their way out in the world, and still kind of developing their core values, and developing their work ethic and things like that, and to have an impact on those guys, and not just have an effect on the next 2, 3 to 4 years for them, but ultimately you're creating values and work ethic and things like that'll carry on for the rest of their life, and being able to have that effect on on those guys is really, really special. And that's something that I'll miss, or that I do miss, about coaching in college, because you don't get quite as much of that in the NFL. You're coaching more grown men that, you know, have wives and children, and you know, they've kind of already figured it out to a certain extent in terms of who they are, and what they believe in, and how they work, and what their values are. And so that is something that I do miss in college, and if I do go back to college, I look forward to getting to do again. But no, the NFL is really special. It's really, really cool to get to work in the NFL and coach in the NFL, and certainly not something I take for granted.
Yeah. So what is like a typical day like for you being with the Bengals?
During the season,
That's a loaded question, but yes, during the season. Let's go during the season first.
okay, during the season, you know, you work long hours. Usually you're in the office between 6 and 6:30 a.m. And then the other great thing about the NFL is you get the players all day. And so the players are in the building at 8 a.m. and you're meeting with them, and you're developing the game plan. You're coaching them on what the game plan is, how you're going to attack the defense that you're playing that week, and just going through a wide spectrum of different things that you need to cover in a game week, in the mornings. And then you practice in the afternoons. So we practice, or I'm sorry, we have a walkthrough first around noon, and then you have a practice in the afternoons, and then you meet with them again later after practice. That goes till about 4 or 5 o'clock, and then you work towards preparing for the next day. And each day kind of carries a different emphasis, whether it's first and second down, third down, red zone, things like that. You know, there are a lot of intricacies and different parts of the game that many people might not realize, that have to get very thoroughly discussed and game planned. And you do all those usually at night. And then later, as the week kind of goes on, you know, Friday, Saturday, it starts to slow down, and you start to, you know, really have put in the bulk of the work, and really you just start to put the finishing touches on it, and then start to relax and get your mind and body, you know, as a player, get your mind and body ready. And then as a coach, just kind of, you know, review and make sure that you're fully prepared for Sunday. You know, in college, you don't get the players for quite as long. You only get them really in the afternoons. You don't get them in the morning. So you don't get to have such quite as thorough of a preparation process. But in the NFL, you get a lot of time with the guys, and I it's certainly valued, and I appreciate getting to have that much time with the players.
Yeah. Well, what about on Sundays? What's a typical day like on a Sunday when you're prepping for a game, or you've already prepped for the game, but you're getting
Yep.
into the game?
Yep. I mean, you still do some final preparations. You still watch on Sunday morning. I'll get into the office, and you know, I'll watch some things that I'm expected to do. I'll have a game day assignment. I have a role on game day, and so I'll do some things in the morning just to make sure I'm fully prepared, and seeing the right things on the field, and doing things like that. And then one part of game day that I really like is I get to go out with some of our down the line receivers and quarterbacks, our third, fourth string quarterback, our sixth, seventh, eighth receivers, and go out and coach them and throw routes on air, and basically get a little bit of a mini practice in, where I'm coaching them, and going through different techniques and drills and things like that pregame. And that kind of sets the mood a little bit, almost to, you know, get into the football mindset, and get ready to rock and roll. But there's nothing like game day. There's nothing like it. It gets the adrenaline flowing. It gets the competitive juices flowing, and really it's an irreplaceable feeling.
Yeah. And about after the games, I mean, do you get to just go home, or are you in the office working, looking at some film, cutting it up?
Yeah, typically for me, a lot of the coaches just get to go home and spend time with their families, and you know, hopefully celebrate a win. But in my role, I do have to do a little bit of work post game, whether it's self scout information for us, putting in information, you know, cataloging information from our game that day, and then as well as preparing for the next opponent. It's nonstop. There's always something to do. And so there's a lot of preparation. There's a lot of tasks that I have to do on Sunday night that need to be prepared for Monday morning. And so I'll usually take care of those immediately after the game. And then if it's a 1 o'clock kickoff, I'll usually get out of the office or get out of the stadium around 6 or 7 o'clock, and then just have some time to relax and watch the Sunday night game or whatever's going on.
Yeah, back to more football.
Back to more football. It never ends. I love it.
That's what I love hearing that story, because I think many people look at athletics and they're like, oh my gosh, that would be the dream job. It sounds so great. You get to just show up on Sundays, you have all this attention on you. You get to work with these athletes that are just the high caliber of athlete that you'd want to be around. But there's so much work and preparation that goes into being a coach, being on the sidelines and working with the guys. That is
Tons.
The behind the scenes, right? No one gets to see it.
Exactly.
And so that's why I love like your story about, working with the guys, the 3 and the 4s before the games. And that's kind of your coach time. Well, what you talked about earlier is be where your feet are. Like that's what you're doing when you're doing all this stuff. You're working really hard at it. So it's going to be fun to watch and see, obviously, your career as you move forward, and you're going to be successful. I can't wait. We'll have you back on. Just remember us back when you're a head coach someday. But you're doing all these things day in and day out that will enable you to have that down the road. It's something that you don't just wish it to happen. It actually takes the day in, day out preparation, the hard work, the relationships. I mean, a lot of the opportunities that you've had have been because you've been a good guy that has treated people the right way, and you have those relationships, and that is critical, not just in athletics. It is critical in athletics, but it's also very critical in life too. So that's why I love, hearing these stories from you, the preparation that goes in it, and how you get to where you are. So, and that's what we were talking about before we started, just how it's so great. We get to listen to all these people. Let's just say we're listening to someone who's a head coach in the NFL right now. Bill Belichick. Let's just say Bill Belichick. We're interviewing him, and he's had a lot of success. But what if we could have heard his story when he was, 30 years old or 22 years old? He didn't know he was going to have this success. He wanted it. Probably he was going to prepare and do the work like you're doing. But what if we can learn these lessons now? Like what's going through your head as you're working your way up in the NFL and getting a chance to do all these things. And then you can look back and see, okay, well, in those moments, it wasn't like you were coasting. It wasn't like you're just wishing it to happen. You were working for it, and you were doing the right things every single day consistently, which many people think is boring. But that's really what it takes, No,
I think that's a really cool perspective too, to have, the views of somebody like that, like you said, from back when they were 25, 30 years old. What did their views look like back then? What did their work ethic and the things they talked about, their values, all those things, what did that look like back then compared to right now? I think that's, those are perspectives that don't often get seen,
Yeah. And it's even a little different because when they look back, it's like you go on a great trip and there's lots of bad things that happen. You don't remember those things because you just remember the great trip it was, right?
Exactly.
So it's kind of that way when you write a book, even though you don't always forget everything, but it's just a little bit different. And I love that you kind of talked about your story. This podcast is building excellence. And the reason why it's called building excellence is things are built over time, consistently each day, the preparation. And so at Utah State, you're building a program and there was success there. At LSU, you were in the process of building a program and that culture, right? And then now as you're at Cincinnati, Cincinnati before has, I've got some really good Cincinnati friends that are big Reds and Bengals fans and whatnot. And they said the highlight is you guys got to live back in the 70s for Cincinnati sports. So, I mean, they've had success in the past, but, they've just gotten to the playoffs and hadn't gone past that. And so you're in the process right now, working under Coach Taylor, his vision for the organization as a whole. What are the things you guys are doing to build the culture that you want to establish, to build the organization to achieve the goals and the aspirations that you guys have for the program? What does that look like from day one and moving forward?
Yeah. We constantly preach, we talk about character, communication, ignoring the noise, coming into the building with a positive mindset and wanting to improve every single day, improving every single day, and being consistent. Those are the main things that we've preached since day one. And I think Coach Taylor's done a great job of continuing to emphasize those things. It's one thing if you just talk about those things in the first team meeting and say these are the things that we're going to be about. These are the things that we're going to build our culture around, and then it never gets talked about again. But I think it's important, and I think Coach Taylor does a great job of continually reemphasizing and reinforcing those aspects of our organization and our team that are going to be they're going to be mandatory. Those are things that we have to be great at in order to win games. And like I said, character, communication are two huge aspects of what we build our culture around. And then being a connected team, being a team that is playing for one another and not just for themselves, and enjoying the success, having as much joy in the success of your teammates as your own. And those are ultimately the closest teams, and the most player-led, player-driven teams are ultimately the ones that have the most success. And that's the culture that we're cultivating, and that we've continued to grow for the last 2 years, and going into the third year, we think it's going to be, it's really going to pay dividends, and we're going to see the success that we've had in building that culture manifest itself in the win-loss column. And Coach Taylor's, again, has done an incredible job of not just preaching about it, but being about it, and constantly reinforcing those values and those things that we build our culture around here.
Yeah. So when you talk about consistency and the things you just talked about, how do you do those things every single day and preach them without it having the feel of monotony, where guys kind of get, I'm hearing this and I don't really care about it? Or how do you kind of keep it consistent, but yet, break it up enough to where it's new and you're keeping the push forward instead of kind of sliding backward?
I think one thing that Coach Taylor does a great job of is finding examples, whether it's from ourselves or from somebody else, or from something outside of football. He isn't, I guess when I say he reemphasizes it and reinforces it, it isn't always in the form of him just talking about it. Mm-hmm. It comes in a lot of different forms. And one of the main ones is, again, finding examples of us doing it, of somebody else doing it, of something occurring that is a principle of what our culture is about. And so, like you said, you can't just sit there and just, talk about it, in every meeting, and because then, like you said, it does get monotonous. But when they can see and feel, not just hear, but when they can see and feel those values and those beliefs happening, and the effect that they have on your team, that's when it really becomes, it gets taken to heart, and it gets a little bit more real for those guys than, again, just hearing about it.
Mm-hmm. How important is discipline?
Extremely. I mean, that's one that doesn't necessarily get talked about more than a couple other things, but it's huge. I think discipline kind of goes hand in hand with consistency. You have to be disciplined day in and day out, and you have to fall in love with the monotony and the boringness that it takes to be consistent and be disciplined and do the things that are going to be required of you, even though they might not be fun, they might not be enjoyable. That's what discipline is to me, and that's what it's a critical aspect, not just for players but for coaches. And that's something that gets talked about a lot as well.
Yeah. And one thing I just thought of when we talk about all this stuff, I remember when I was in my pursuit of coaching, I was at the Thunder training camp, and I don't know, it was like 2000, maybe 14 or 15, one of the two. I was sitting down, and I'm this at the time I'm college, so I have this guy sitting next to me who I watched growing up, who played for Coach K. It was John Shire, who's now going to be the head coach at Duke next year. But I
Yep.
was asking him because being around Coach K and being around different coaches that have a high level of success, what is it that makes them successful? And you're always asking these questions. But what has been interesting to me over my career is to hear consistency and sometimes like monotony, boringness, mundane. I mean, those are words that we don't like to talk about. And it's not necessarily those words, but in a sense, it kind of is. Like, it's every day just doing the same things over. And that's one thing he talked about, is like what makes Coach K great. Well, like that consistency and that discipline each day, getting better
Yep.
each day, but working on those fundamentals each day and improving. It also helps that
Yep.
they have really good talent. So, but that helps a lot.
Talent always helps.
Yes, but at the same time, when you have that talent and you have those principles, you have that consistency, it makes a huge difference. And
No
so
doubt.
that's what you guys are building. So I really want to touch on that. You've now got, you're getting some pieces that you guys have wanted to get in the draft, and you got Joe
Sure.
Burrow last year or 2 years ago now. You got
Yep.
Jamar Chase this year, and also guys that were at LSU. So you got to see them mature. What is the biggest things that you've seen in them as players as they progressed and gotten better?
Well, yeah. With Joe Burrow specifically, what's so impressive about him is the intent that he has every single day. His singular focus is being the best quarterback that he can possibly be. And when you do that, it sounds simple, but it's tough to do. And when you do it, you're gonna see tremendous results. And that's what he's seeing. He's obviously talented as well. And he has really impressive skills and traits, but the thing that is far and away the most impressive thing about him is just the way he approaches every single day with intent, and every single practice he goes out there, and his only goal is to get better. He's not going to go out to a practice and not get better. And we like to talk about, coaches like to talk about going through the motions, is a common phrase when you're doing things, but you're not really getting better at it. You're just doing it to do it. You're doing it to check a box. That doesn't exist with Joe. He doesn't understand that. That does not resonate with him. And when you have that mindset, when you go out there every single day and you are intent about improving your skill set, your mental ability, your processing ability, your toughness, your things like that, you're going to see improvement and you're going to see success. And that's what's happened with him. And then to see him grow as a leader as well. Whenever he came to LSU, he was the new guy in the summer, coming into a four-way quarterback battle, as a transfer from Ohio State. And his leadership role just continually grew throughout that training camp, throughout that season, and obviously through 2019. And it was never forced. He's somebody that, it's all natural. It's all him. He's so genuine and so straightforward, and he doesn't BS you. He is who he is, and after you're around that for a certain amount of time, you begin to respect it, and that's what his leadership role is kind of evolved to be. Is just he's the dude, and he's the dude because he is who he is, and he's not going to fake anything. He's going to be real, and guys appreciate that and they gravitate to that. And then with Jamar, he was somebody that came in as a true freshman and was kind of figuring it out his first year. Had a lot of ups and downs. His first year, probably didn't see the field as much as he would have liked. And then he matured a lot, and he grew up, and grew up not just mentally but physically as well. And I think throughout that his first year at LSU, his freshman year, he learned a lot about what it takes to be a great receiver in the SEC. And obviously he exploded and had the year that he had. He always had the talent and the ability. But I think he did a lot of growing mentally his first year, and then blew up and had the year he had in 2019. And then getting to be back with him this offseason for the first time since then. I see it. I see how much he's grown mentally, and how, maybe Joe has had I'm sure it has happened. Joe's probably had a little bit of an effect on him in terms of how he approaches each day and how he prepares for each game, and how he approaches practice, and his intent to get better, and do the right things. I think you've seen that rub off on Jamar, and it's been a lot of fun to see them grow and develop throughout the last 3 years, even though there was a gap year in there for me, to see where they're at now comparatively to 2018. You could see that there was a lot of potential there. But to see where they're at and how far they've come and where they're at now has been really, really cool.
Absolutely. Yeah. And some of the points going off that is that, when you think about leadership, that's leadership, what Joe Burrow is talking about, where that's just who he is. He's being himself, but he is demanding other people get to his level, essentially. And
Yep.
then you talk about Jamar Chase kind of being around that builds a culture. You know what I mean? Like
Yep.
that accelerates everyone to a new level. Talking about Coach Taylor actually living the stuff he's talking about, that's what makes great leaders, the ones that actually live out what they're talking about. Because people don't want to
Yep.
listen to someone who's not actually living what they're talking about. So,
Yep. No question.
those are great points. Very cool for you. I know we need to wind it down real quick because Brad is on vacation, so he gave us a little bit of time. So we're thankful for that. But what are some things when you think about great coaches, great players, what makes them great? I mean, you touched on it just a second ago, but what makes those guys great?
Yeah, I think it can be a lot of different things. Like we talked about earlier, consistency to me is a huge, huge part of it. And then just selflessness, and being, being a great teammate, and understanding, if you're a receiver, if you're, somebody who isn't necessarily getting the ball on every play, doing the things that are necessary to make sure that the team has the most success. Individual success is a byproduct of team success a lot of times, and the great players understand that, um, and coupled with that, just having a drive and a competitive spirit, to always, to be the best, really, is to me what a lot of those elite, best of the best type of athletes all have in common, is they have an incredible drive and an incredibly high competitive level, and you see it every time that they perform, every time they step out there on their field or court or whatever it is. I think those are a couple of some of the important aspects. I'm sure I'm missing on a couple of them as well, but those are the ones that really stick out in my mind.
Yeah, absolutely. No question. So, aside from your dad, who are some coaches that you really admire and respect within not just NFL, but college? Who are some coaches that really, are those guys to you, either from afar
Yeah,
or close by? So,
yeah. I was fortunate to get to play for a really good coach in high school at Trinity. My offense coordinator and quarterback coach there was somebody that had a real big impact on me, and the way I approached the game, and the way I grew as a leader. He taught me that, about how leadership is, it's about getting, elevating the play, and the elevating the play of the guys around you, and inspiring the guys around you. And I learned a lot about that from him. And then I got to play for, obviously my dad was a big influence on me and in my career, and who I am now, and getting to play for him was a really, really cool experience. And then, guys like John Wooden, Tony Dungy, people like that from afar, I've always admired, not just their coaching skills, but their developing skills, and their ability to help guys, not just in the game of basketball or football, but the game of life, and instill those values and core beliefs that you're gonna take with you way beyond your playing days, and will be determining factors in your success and what you do in life. And
Yeah.
so people like that are always guys that I've really admired and read about and tried to do as much research about as I can, and learn as much as I can from the way they did things and the way they approached coaching at such a high level.
Mm-hmm. Any good resources of books or podcasts that you've read that you would recommend?
Um, Quiet Strength by Tony Dungy is a great book. That's one I've read a couple times. Um, I've really just started to get into reading more recently. It's something that I've always wanted to do more of. Ever since really college days, but it's something that a guy who I work with the Bengals has kind of been on me about, and he's kind of pushed me towards reading a little bit more. So it's something that I've gotten in more into recently. So I'd probably be more in line for recommendations than giving recommendations.
Okay.
but no, I in terms of other things, other resources that I like to use, I am a fan of podcasts. I'll listen to leadership podcasts and things like that. And then I enjoy listening to some of the people that somebody like Joe Rogan has on. I think he has some really really cool and inspiring guests that are outside of that I like to listen to. They're outside the athletic world, and hearing how everything kind of correlates. There's so many similarities to business, between business and football, or not even business, but whatever area, whatever career. And hearing a lot of experiences like that is pretty motivating, and I take a lot from. But yeah, if I'm more about getting book recommendations at this point.
Yeah, awesome. Well, real quickly, we're gonna do a little fire round, so you can finish the sentence. I'll say a word, and you can finish the sentence. So,
Okay.
resilience.
Resilience is pushing through tough circumstances, and finding a way to make them better yourself. Finding a way to get better from a tough experience, and come out of it stronger and a better person than you were before.
Awesome. Favorite pass you like to throw?
Favorite pass I like to throw,
Mm-hmm.
or favorite pass I've had?
You like to throw. How about that?
Go ball.
Go ball.
Go
Okay.
ball. Go ball. Outside the
Who
numbers.
to? Who
Throw
to?
it deep. Throw it deep.
What receiver?
One that I've played with.
Either way.
I'd go with Kwame Sexton.
Oh man. Okay, awesome. Favorite college football experience or NFL football experience? Like let's just say travel experience.
Okay. I've got two. So my favorite college football experience was getting to throw the game-winning touchdown against Florida on a fake field goal in 2015. That was a really, really cool experience. And then more recently in my coaching career, getting to coach in Monday Night Football. That was something that the last 2 years really kind of pinch yourself moments, when you're standing on the field and you're about to play in a Monday Night Football game that you're going to be a part of. Those have been really, really cool.
Awesome. Focus.
Focus is being intentful and in having a drive and a determination to accomplish the goal that you currently have set in front of you.
Great. Favorite shortstop you've ever played with?
Bailey Miles.
Oh, perfect. That's a good answer.
That's a good question.
Yeah. It all comes down to.
It all comes down to maintaining your beliefs and values, and then again, the word keeps coming up, but just being consistent, being the same guy day in and day out, and constantly having a growth mindset and wanting to better yourself, and having somewhat of a adapt or die mentality to just constantly wanting to get better every single day. And if you do those things, that's I think you're gonna find success.
Awesome. Well, we're done with the fire round, but what's the best piece of advice you've ever received?
Best piece of advice. Probably, my dad used to always talk to me about just hard work. And really there's no substitute for hard work. That is what instilled the work ethic that I have currently is all from my dad, and my older brother as well. But he constantly preached to me about how there's no substitute for hard work, that nothing is, guaranteed to you in life, that being complacent and um, things like that are just, they're always going to hold you back. And as long as you're continuing to work hard, you're going to find your way.
Yeah. And obviously, you just answered that question, but throughout this show, you've been able to, the listeners have been able to look and see that that is a quality that you possess throughout your life. This podcast is called Building Excellence. What would you say building excellence means to you?
Building excellence is just is constantly getting better. It's constantly finding ways to improve yourself, and whether it can be any area of life. Doesn't just have to be career driven. It can be as a husband, as a father, as a brother, as a teammate, and anything like that. Building excellence is constantly working at your craft in any area of life, and consistently improving it, and not wasting days, and being intentful about improving every day.
Yeah. Well, if anyone wants to, learn more about you or, get in touch, is there any like social platform that you're on that they can follow you and learn more about you? Or
Yeah. I'm on Twitter. So my handle, I believe, is at B Kragthorpe. So just B and then my last name. Or you could just type my name in. But yeah, I'm not super active as much as I was back in my college coaching days. But I just do a lot of retweeting now, I guess. But yeah, that would probably be the best channel.
yeah, that's a good thing. It probably means you're working at your job. So
Exactly.
yeah, well,
Limit distractions.
yeah. Well, Brad, thanks so much for being on the show. One thing I wanted to touch on what you're talking about making an impact, and that's one of the differences between college and professional, and you still get to do that in professional, but it's a little bit different. I just want to say that like that is your heart behind coaching. It's not just about, you love the game obviously, but you love making a difference just as coaches have made a difference in your life. And so I just want to commend you on that, because you're coaching for the right reasons. You are making an impact. You will continue making an impact. We're really excited to watch your career. One day we'll have you back on as a head coach. So thanks for being on the show. Really appreciate it, and enjoy the rest of the vacation before things start up.
Yep. Appreciate it. It was a lot of fun. Appreciate
Thanks.
it, Bailey.
See ya.